Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Laurel Hess and this is Comcast Newsmakers coming to you from the state capitol. Joining me now is State Representative Tom Barrett, a Republican from the 71st District, which represents the majority of Eaton County. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Here talking today about veterans issues. We certainly have a lot of them sort of going on as we speak in our state. Issues that are particularly hit close to home for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually the only Iraq War veteran serving in the Michigan House of Representatives right now, so this is an important issue for me. And after I won my election, the Speaker approached me about chairing the Military and Veteran Affairs Committee, something that I was proud to do. Felt honored to do that. Freshmen don't often get to chair committees, but it was something that I thought I could contribute toward. And we've done a lot of work on the committee. We passed some bipartisan legislation earlier in the term back in 2015 that allows veterans who suffer from post-traumatic stress or a traumatic brain injury to have a service dog accompany them in public, a disability service dog to help them out. We worked with the Department of Civil Rights here at the state level to issue a specific patch to veterans that have a service dog so that business owners will know that the dog coming into their establishment is a trained service dog that they can allow in. So we worked on that. Also worked on legislation in other committees as well that help veterans in other ways with job training or transferring job skills that they learned on active duty into the civilian world so that they don't have to start over from ground zero when they transfer back home. And then I worked with one of my colleagues in the Senate to pass bipartisan legislation that protects the parental rights of service members so that if they are deployed overseas, they can have their kids, or they won't risk having their kids taken away from them in a child custody dispute while they're gone and unable to defend themselves
So
back
many
home.
important issues that you don't think about when you're not a veteran or the spouse or the family member of a veteran, that these are not issues that you don't have to deal with if you're not deployed overseas for years at a time.
Sure, yeah, and all of us care about our veterans. You don't have to be a veteran to care about veterans issues, but I think it does take a little bit of unique insight that hopefully I can bring to the table and say, look, you know, I've been through some of these challenges myself before or served with other people who have, and just trying to pay it forward to help those people out who I've served with, the men and women that I served with in uniform.
Michigan certainly has many clinics where, VA clinics where veterans can go for health care, but we only have two veterans homes in our state, one in Grand Rapids, one up in the UP in Marquette. Probably they could be doing a little bit better at what they're doing, correct? There was an audit, at least at the Grand Rapids facility?
Absolutely. There was recently an audit done in the Grand Rapids Home for Veterans, and as you pointed out, we have two of these homes for veterans that function more or less similar to a nursing home would, and they are open to veterans and their spouses, their surviving spouses, to live in these homes. And unfortunately, the audit of the Grand Rapids Veterans Home that was performed by the state's Auditor General showed some very troubling findings. They show that they were understaffed over 80% of the time. The basic room checks were not completed as they should have been. That records were falsified by the leaders in the home to show that the room checks and fall alarm checks had been completed even though they hadn't. And then that simple things like proper accounting of insurance claims and other things were not handled properly. And then allegations of abuse and neglect were not routed through the proper channels, and some of them went improperly or uninvestigated altogether. So we've recently begun hearings with the House Oversight Committee as well as with my committee, the Committee on Military and Veteran Affairs, to really investigate this issue, and we're going to continue to do so. There is new leadership in the department. The department director resigned after the audit was released, and they have new leadership at the department as well as at the home. And they have a new Michigan Veterans Health System coordinator who is supposed to get them up to the standards that they need to be at. In addition, we should look at potential legislative fixes that could include an independent ombudsman, as well as having licensing and regulatory affairs State Department have inspection authority over the home to make sure that things like that are not continuing in the future.
Healthcare, a huge issue for veterans, not just at the homes. Very quickly, you're also trying to make it easier for all veterans to access healthcare.
Yes, we passed a resolution in the Michigan House of Representatives that calls on the federal government to allow veterans to make their healthcare portable so that they would not have to go to a VA hospital and suffer the long wait lines or other complications that they have with the VA health system. If they're uncomfortable with that, then they can take their health care to any willing provider that would be able to do that.
Right.
So we're asking the federal government to do that for us here.
A lot of great work being done on the veterans' behalf. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Today's Comcast Newsmaker was Tom Barrett, a Republican from the 71st District.